In the wake of patch 2.0 and Phantom Liberty, a ton of the larger Overhaul mods were broken. Well, basically all mods are broken, but a lot of those mods are still being fixed and many of them actually being updated. But as a result, some of the more heavily modded loaders for Cyberpunk are just gone now. Or at least they were until you watched this video. And today, I'm going to show you some of the best mods that were updated for patch 2.0 that do genuinely overhaul Cyberpunk 2077. And in Night City, once you get all that chrome and upgrades, you could really feel like a superhero dominating those around you. But there is one downside. You can't actually play Cyberpunk 2077 on the go. But if you do want to play as a hero on the go, you can download today's video sponsor, Marvel Strike Force. Marvel Strike Force offers that perfect blend of gameplay. Combat sequences are intense and in real time, but of course you're on the phone and sometimes distractions pop up in life, so thankfully it also features turn-based strategy elements with stunning visuals to back it all up. And if you have been missing some of your favorite MCU characters, don't worry because they're here, all of them. You can play as Iron Man or Captain America and team up with or even face off against some of the most iconic villains in the MCU. And don't worry because these combat encounters won't get stale. Over time, you'll unlock new characters, developing unique team synergies, because that better team is almost always right around the corner. As a Marvel Strike Force, the meta is constantly evolving, and you're able to lead your team into all kinds of unique avenues. From the rich storylines throughout familiar Marvel locales with RPG-like cinematics, or if you're just in the mood for a fight, you can immediately jump into battle in the Blitz or Arena modes. But if you really want to put things to the test, try out the Alliance War, where you and your allies will step up in a PvP tourney. And right now is the perfect time to jump in and get immersed in the Marvel Universe. For a limited time only, if you scan my QR code or click on the link down below, you'll unlock Captain Marvel and Miles Morales totally for free just by logging in. And of course, you'll be able to save the world. So first off, I do think we need to add a couple of smaller mods, because these are small mods that became way more impactful after patch 2.0. The first one here is Corrupt NCPD. The new police system in Cyberpunk 2077 is awesome. You do some crimes and you get into some epic police chases. But then sometimes it's not quite as awesome. You're driving perfectly in the road and some dumb NPC runs in front of you out of nowhere, giving you a wanted level. So now instead of being able to do that quest, you have to deal with losing the police who will actually chase you now. Unless you have Corrupt NCPD, as this will fix that. It adds in a new callable NCPD contact who, for a fee, will immediately remove your wanted level. And the nice part about this mod is it is fully configurable, so you can make this very expensive or relatively cheap. I personally think putting it on the highest price is honestly fairly well balanced. So it becomes something you could use every once in a while, but if you do want to get rid of the police, it'll cost you several thousand eddies, and this does scale with the more wanted levels you do have, although it will not get rid of MaxTac. They're just in a category of their own. And if you are diving into Phantom Liberty, another mod I highly recommend you download is the Kuroshi Optics Night Vision mod. Cyberpunk 2077, especially in Dogtown, can just get incredibly dark, to the point where at times you almost can't see what's in front of you. I'm sure almost all of you watching had a similar experience with that introductory section of Phantom Liberty. Well, this mod will fix that, and do so in not only a lore-friendly but easy to access way, as it adds in a new hotkey that you can tap to turn on night vision. And this mod too is super well implemented. It'll have assignable hotkeys for not only PC but also controller, and you do actually need to have a tier 3 or higher of the Kuroshi Optics for the night vision functionality to be included. So for both of those mods, while they're small, they honestly do have pretty large impacts on your overall gameplay with Phantom Liberty and Cyberpunk 2077 2.0. But for a more comprehensive overhaul, we also have Hardcore 22. This literally just got its big 2.0 beta update, and definitely has become one of my all-time favorite mods for Cyberpunk. Like the title suggests, what this mod's going to do is make combat in Cyberpunk 2077 more hardcore. The main way it'll do this is by vastly reducing the time to kill. But unlike other mods, it'll do this for both you and other NPCs in Night City. So if you carelessly walk into a gunfight, you'll just be taken down within seconds. And this completely transforms the landscape of combat in Night City, because now planning and even positioning become imperative for combat success. And the combat encounters themselves are just always going to be far more tense. It doesn't matter what type of enemy or what weapon they have, you're almost always going to be just a couple of shots or hits from death. But if you do manage to position yourself well, you will be highly rewarded. You can burst through a group of enemies in mere seconds, so it creates this really interesting dynamic where, with a bit of preparation, some combat encounters you'll just breeze through. But since enemies can take you out in just a few shots, there is always going to be some degree of tension. And if you manage to get caught out of position and pinned down from a few baddies, this becomes a genuinely dire situation. And I think this is where the mod becomes a lot of fun. When you're pinned down from enemies, you'll start to lean on some of your character's other abilities or some of the other tools you have to survive. I felt like in vanilla Cyberpunk combat, after I got my overpowered build situated, I just kind of turned my brain off. But with this mod, I was constantly thinking about what to do next. And that really is the core part of this mod, survival. It makes the combat encounters in Cyberpunk genuinely feel like a fight for your life because it removes bullet sponges and arbitrary bonuses. Plus, all of the weapons you could find will deal plenty of damage now, so it becomes incredibly fun discovering what weapon combinations work best because now there's going to be a lot more possibilities. As well as there will be some more specific changes to come with this mod. Many pistols had their fire rate limiters removed, so you can now fire these pistols as fast as you can click. As well as mechanical enemies like turrets will actually be very strong now. They'll take multiple shots as well as pose a genuine threat in combat because they could take you down in just a couple of shots. Many of the attachments for your weapons are rebalanced to provide more basic benefits. They're not going to enhance your damage or decrease your damage nearly as much. But speaking of attachments for your weapons, there are a couple of great tandem mods that you could add on to this hardcore one, such as silent silencers and throwing knives, a mod that I'm sure almost all of you have heard of. But specifically when using this with Hardcore 22, it becomes a lot more fun and these two just synergize super well. If you're not familiar, what this mod will do is make it so if you're far enough away, shots fired from a silenced weapon or a throwing knife will not alert enemies. In vanilla Cyberpunk, a shot from a silenced weapon will make enemies immediately aware of your location. But here, as long as you're a decent distance away, you can maintain stealth the entire time. And why this mod's so great is all of it's completely configurable. So you can make it so you need to be a decent ways away to not be detected, so those enemies can't hear your shot, and you could even make it so there's a random chance that enemies will be able to detect you even if you are far enough away, just to add a little bit more spice into the encounters. And this will also apply to throwing knives, which have their own separate values. So you can become a real stealth hero, taking out enemies in quick succession from up close with some completely silent throwing knives. But the reason this mod becomes so much better with Hardcore 22 is because if you do get seen by enemies, things can devolve incredibly quickly. Stealth is very strong because you're able to one-shot most enemies from afar, but if you screw up and do get too close or a rogue enemy sneaks up on you, you can be taken down in just a couple of shots and the tension will rise immediately. So positioning becomes even more important when using both of these mods in tandem. But a third mod that I think really brings this all full circle and creates a really fun gameplay loop is nano drones. This is a super unique one. It'll add in a new Arasaka nano drone that you could buy and upgrade at Ripperdocs. So when you're approaching an enemy base, you can call out your drone and scout out the area ahead of you to tag enemies and make note of their locations. But this also adds in an incredibly unique mechanic for Netrunner builds, as for an increased cost, you can upload quick hacks from your drone onto enemies or even environmental objects. And this is pretty well balanced. You'll of course have to rely on your own RAM, but even further, your drone will have a battery level that'll drain over time as you're using it. And the drone in general has a limited range, and uploading quick hacks from the drone will deplete its battery even faster. So as you're using all three of these mods in tandem, you have this really cool gameplay loop. You can scout out enemy outposts, but you're able to scout out areas ahead of you now. And then when you're ready to move in, you could silently take down enemies because now some of your attacks will be completely quiet. But if you mess any of this up, the consequences will be immense as a result of the hardcore mode in the background. Overall, I think using these three mods in tandem do create this really fun and unique gameplay loop that I haven't seen any other mods bring to the table, and especially not among mods that are actually updated for patch 2.0. But then let's make your game look a bit better with the E3 2018 lighting mod. This just got a huge update for patch 2.0, and in my opinion, it makes Cyberpunk 2077 look absolutely amazing. As the title of this one suggests, it'll bring Cyberpunk 2077's visuals more in line with what was shown during the 2018 gameplay demo for the game. And in turn, this means making several of the scenes in Cyberpunk lighter, but also overhauling the luminance from signs and the sun and really just lighting overall. At its core, it'll give Cyberpunk 2077 a far lighter palette, but this becomes incredibly pretty when you do have some of that visual contrast, so the lights of Night City really shine through now and create a presence in the world. Some of the more specific areas like the Badlands have been more modified and have overhauled looks to them, but I think exploring Night City with this mod just feels a lot better. And for me, I really found this mod to be pleasant on two fronts. On one hand, I think it just looks great and will really bring some serious visual enhancements to the game, but even further, it has that novelty factor. I have, and I'm sure for many of you watching have, played hundreds of hours with Cyberpunk looking like this. So now when you have the opportunity to give Cyberpunk a new look for your next 100 hours, it just has a certain freshness to it that makes the game a bit more enjoyable in an odd way. But a brand new mod that will enhance visuals even more is Streamlined HUD. This will do two major things. One, it'll make Cyberpunk 2077's HUD notably smaller scale. The quest information, the health bar, and even the weapon display are going to be more compact with this mod installed. So more of your screen will be dedicated to the game and the world and not the HUD overlaying it. I'm an absolute stickler for this kind of stuff. I cannot stand cumbersome HUDs, and honestly in a lot of games I turn the HUD off completely. But for better or for worse, I find the HUD to be really quite additive in Cyberpunk's gameplay, so I like to leave it on, but I think this mod is a huge upgrade. And the second reason I really like this one is it'll make the design of the HUD far more consistent. Instead of some of the modules having one design while some others have almost a completely different design, with Streamlined HUD all of the different modules have a similar design language. It feels like the HUD has a greater degree of consistency across the board, and I really enjoy the design from this one. It really doesn't feel all that different or out of place in Cyberpunk at all, but another mod that has quickly risen to become my favorite mod for Cyberpunk, especially after patch 2.0, is the car modification shop. It implements a new vendor in Watson where you're able to go and upgrade various aspects about your vehicle's performance. This is just how your vehicle accelerates, handles, brakes, etc. No visual changes are added. And this does include the new vehicles added from Phantom Liberty. And really just everything about this mod is great. The buyable options come in tiers. You can really grow with your cars over the course of the entire game. And it really opens up possibilities for which car may become your favorite or even the fastest that you own. So if you have that one car that you love, but the handling just makes it a little bit cumbersome or annoying to use, you can upgrade those aspects of it to absolutely stick to the road or even have crazy braking power. And a feature like this fits in super well into Cyberpunk because this is a consistent eddy sync over the course of the game, which I feel like is something the game really did need. But of course, with patch 2.0 and the police rework, this mod became 10 times better, thanks to the absolutely epic car chases you could have now. You could turn motorcycles into true weapons, how they probably should have always been anyway, and you could use these to escape police chases or just take them on winding chases down alleys and side streets. And overall, I found the car modification shop to really open up your options and possibilities with the vehicles you have in your garage already. You're basically unlocking a whole new tier of options for those vehicles because you can now finally upgrade them to make them fast or handle well. And if you want to see the streets of Night City become even more active as you're cruising around them, one of my favorite new mods is Night City Alive. I just recently covered this one and been using it ever since. It'll make it so the streets of Night City will have far more gang activity and gang members on them. Oftentimes you'll just find them doing general gang jobs like transportation, but as a result of so many more gang members being on the streets doing otherwise menial tasks, you'll encounter far more naturally occurring fights or conflicts as a result of all of these patrols happening. So instead of just having some of those scripted events that CDPR added with patch 2.0, this mod will make it so you can organically stumble upon gang conflicts, and it just makes Night City feel a lot more like it's described in the game. It's supposed to be this dark underworld dominated by gangs with conflict happening all over, where things feel genuinely dangerous. And with this mod, that's a reality. You'll find tons of gunfights happening all over the streets of Night City, sometimes between rival gangs, other times between the police and other gangs. And after using this for the past few weeks, it's really become one of my favorite mods for Cyberpunk. But we also can't sleep on the epic new radio stations implemented with patch 2.0. Between the new host and the new songs, I absolutely love these. So much that I think you should be able to listen to these on the go, and you can now with the freshly updated Pocket Radio mod. This will basically allow you to listen to the radio even while you're on foot and outside of a vehicle. But if all of that wasn't enough for you, you should check out this video where I show you 20 more mods to perfect Cyberpunk. But with that video, it's a far greater focus on smaller quality of life mods that will really add up to something great.